Good morning again. Good morning. There's wisdom to having food afterwards, so we're going to really try to move through this briskly. I'm going to ask anybody that's going to speak, and I do think it's important that we acknowledge these folks that lead these various ministries. Their remarks will be brief. Obviously, everything is already written in this, so they'll just make some remarks that highlight some of their activities. It's really important to acknowledge and thank them, and to understand the hard work that goes on behind the scenes in so many different aspects of our life here at the church. So I'm going to turn it over to my friend Bishop Rabb here, as I've now officially called the meeting to order, and he might give us an opening prayer.
Let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, source of all wisdom and understanding, be present with those of us who are taking counsel in this, the annual meeting of St. David's Church, for the renewal and mission of your church. Teach us in all things to seek first your honor and glory, guide us to receive what is right, and grant us both the courage to pursue it and the grace to accomplish it, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Next item of business is to approve the minutes from the last annual meeting. They are in your package. Probably haven't had that long to read them, I know. Our registrar extraordinaire has put together a phenomenally good set of minutes for last year's meeting, so by acclamation I would ask that the minutes be approved. All right, thank you. I'll turn it back over to John to talk about pastoral care.
Since the finishing up of Scott Slater's ministry at the middle of January, Caroline Stewart and I have been sharing both responsibility for Sunday worship and other worship, as well as pastoral care, and that will continue until the arrival of our new rector, Todd Bruce, on March 19th. And the one thing I want to say is that don't think that you are bothering either one of us if you call us. I think we've been able to stay on top of hospitalizations and other circumstances, funerals and so forth, but please, our phone numbers and our cell numbers are listed every Sunday in the bulletin so that you can reach us directly. You can certainly call the church office, and Roxanne will make sure that one or both of us know. So the main thing I want to say about our work is that we've been, I hope, faithful supplying in this interim period. I do want to say, just very briefly, that my not being here for the next several weeks is not anything due to anything with St. David's. I'm honoring a long-time obligation to be with Grace at St. Peter's next week, and then my daughter and I are going to Morocco. And why Morocco? Well, I'll tell you about that at lunch. But at any rate, Caroline will be with you now on the Sundays. I'm even sad I won't even be here to welcome Todd on his first Sunday, but be back here by the 1st of April. So in terms of worship and pastoral care, please just know we're here available. There is no problem calling either one of us at any time. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Better? Thanks. The growth in energy here has been palpable over the last year. The parish life waking up after the COVID years. Our outreach potential is growing in several directions. We have 6 new members from the ministry fair, which had been asked for by the focus groups to bring that back, and it was very successful. And also from commitment cards, and there had been some word in the past that people who signed commitment cards didn't necessarily get called and responded to, so we are doing that. We are in anticipation of Father Todd Bruce joining us soon, bringing his unique energy and experience during this pivotal point in our history. It's a very exciting time at St. David's. I'm very happy to be sharing in it. It reminds me of my little church in Vermont, where we had some similar, very exciting times on a minute scale to this. Paul's Place is restarting their After 3 program, which has been put off for years and years. There will be many needs for teachers, and it sounds like a wonderful thing. There will be a blood drive at the end of March. The Samaritan Center has a Tuesday morning breakfast where you can go cook and have breakfast together. There are new and renewing in several areas. In my experience in the last year, I'm considering that the Sacred Ground is the ultimate outreach program for St. David's at this time. It was given last January. We will be talking about it next week, so this is sort of a plug for that, but mostly a plug for the fact that this is outreach. It's an important piece of our place in Christ's world. We learned history that had not been taught, and it was stunning and begs to be shared and found a way to be put to use in the community. We learned that the oft-dreaded word of reparations is in need of translation. The results of deeply embedded racism need to be addressed on very practical levels in many areas. Next week at 9 o'clock, we'll be having a forum regarding this. Basically, we've had a good year. We have lots of new things happening. Please read the report, and thank you, Roxanne, for your manna bags. I don't think you got listed. And join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. Mackie.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all who have joined Parish Life, the Parish Life Committee. Jenny Hovermill and Lloyd Burdett are my co-chairs with me, and they're not here, so I'm doing this today. Parish Life has just exploded, and thank you all for participating, and and the day school has participated. We've had Easter egg hunts, we've had boosted coffee hours, thanks to Hannah, and now to Lloyd Burdett as well. We had a real bazaar. We had a mission barbecue party. We've had the Men of St. David's have done many things, and we beat the pancake supper by at least 10 people this year by having 90 people come. And we had the ladies have hosted Ladies' Night Out. The men's club have done a bunch of things, and the day school has participated. It just goes on, and we've been cleaning up the kitchen, and we're looking forward to another amazing year, and hope that you all will read this great report that Jenny wrote and join us in all of our events. Thank you.
So I'll encourage everybody to please read at your leisure the information about the day school, which is continuing to thrive. Donna is not here today. She warned me late last week, Stuart, I don't know why you put me on the agenda. I told you in an email. I said, Donna, I'm reading a lot of emails about this place these days, so forgive me. So I'm going to call John Rabb back up along with Carolyn Janowski to talk about formation. And there's a lot of great Christian formation work going on here.
I'm not going to repeat all that we wrote in the report on page 11. I think you all can read that. The important thing I want to say is that we are anchoring our Christian formation with themes. We've just finished a theme on Christian-Jewish relations. We're now going to move into one on loving your neighbor, where we're going to focus on the work we're doing here at St. David's in terms of justice and outreach. And we're also allowing space because we know on March 19th, our new rector will be here, and he is blessing us because he's deeply committed to Christian formation. That was a major part of the work at Trinity Church where he's been serving. So we will be looking forward to engaging Todd in our planning as we move past Easter season. We gather in the Great Hall from 9 until 9:45, and thanks to the generosity of my colleagues, we will provide you with light fare, except on those Sundays when some of us forget. But and I want you to also feel free to let any of us know. In addition to me, I'm also blessed to have Alma Bell, John and Gilchrist Hammond, Judith and Travers Nelson, Barbara Pyler, John Rivera, and Sharon Rabb working with me. So if you have ideas or thoughts, please let us know. And we're happy to move forward with that. And then we did something last summer that I'm not going to assume it's going to be quite the same because I'm going to leave that up to Todd Bruce, but we did get a very good response to our summer Bible study, where we use that 45 minutes to reflect on the scriptures that we're using for that Sunday. And I see no reason why something like that can't be done again this summer. Now I'll let Carolyn talk about youth and children.
Good morning. We are rebuilding in the Sunday school after 2+ years of having COVID and not having meetings. So we're making good strides. I'm sure a lot will change when Todd gets here. But the two things I want to mention, first of all, please read this very short report, but two things that I think are very important, and one is telling the story. So currently we have expanded Sunday school to start at 3, and that's a little unusual for us, but we want to build, and we thought that was the right place to start. Telling the stories is very important. If we're going to then take the children as they get older through confirmation, they need to have a basis of the stories, and so that's what we're focusing on. The other focus that I want to mention is the fact that average Sunday attendance is different now. It's not going to be the way it was 40 years ago when I started coming here. And so we're preparing for that. And one of the things that we do is I stay in touch weekly with the parents of children who have registered. And so if you're unable to make it, understandably, most people don't come every week, but I'm actually providing materials via email to the parents so that even if they can't be here, they have the opportunity to keep their children up to date, to tell the stories at home, to have the same kinds of materials that we will be using in Sunday school. Because I think our whole idea of Sunday school needs to be expanded a bit. The only other thing I will repeat in my report, which is I really do want to thank Ketty Seitz. Is she still here? Ketty Seitz has been my right hand. And she's 20 years old, and she has a lot of ideas about expanding Sunday school and youth group, and it's wonderful to have someone from that age from St. David's to really be part of this, and I thank her very much. And I thank you for your support as well. I've heard so many wonderful things. I certainly encourage you, as Todd gets here, if there are families that you haven't seen, please get in touch with them. Let them know we're here. We are working. We do have Sunday school. Things are moving forward, and I would love to see more kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Let's see, Mr. Bethel. He's coming back from the mixing board back there. Yeah, please cover communications if you could.
My best Denise imitation.
Yeah, yeah.
So since the last annual meeting, we have completely redone the website. If you haven't been there, please check it out. We're also in the process of implementing a new domain name, St. David's Baltimore.org, which is more in keeping with the church than the .com we had before. We have also been expanding Realm. I know most of you probably aren't on Realm, but it's a social media platform specifically for the church, limited to people who are members of the congregation. So I'd really encourage you to download that. It will keep you young. Switching my hat over to the live stream, a lot of progress has been made in the past year. We've overcome a lot of supply chain constraints and finally gotten in place all the different components. So you will notice there's a camera back there over the baptismal font. There's another camera on the side here pointing at me. There's a microphone here and microphones around and new microphones for the people who are delivering the liturgy. And all that adds up to a really comprehensive professional presentation of our services and our musical events. The only problem is that now that we've sort of left the pandemic behind in our minds, that we are short on the actual viewers out there. I will say all the statistics are in the written report. We get a half dozen people who typically join us for a service online. It is serving other needs. Like, we get a lot of people looking at the musical performances, either live or later on, thanks to the live stream. And there was a funeral the other, I guess about a week ago, that got about 80 different views from people around the country. So I think there's a niche. I think there's value in doing it. I would love to find a young person who is interested in video production, who wants to craft their reel, to take over the actual like camera movements and all the other stuff that I do when I'm sitting back there. So if you know somebody like that, put them in touch with me. Otherwise, it's a work in progress, and I think we're making good progress on live streaming. Yep.
Thank you. Dr. Doug.
So about a year ago at this time, we were dealing with Omicron, which was sort of the second big wave. So that was kind of the first challenge that we faced in 2022, which resulted in canceling our first two music events. In general, the non-Sunday morning music events have slowly been rebuilding. Attendance and donations were lower at the beginning of the calendar year and have moved upwards. We had about 50 folks at our first evensong of this program year, the 2022-2023 program year. That trend continues to come up. Just this last evensong, there were about 90 people, which I think was a great turnout. So that both donations and attendance numbers for those events are coming up. The choir, I was really proud of many of the things that, I was proud of all the things, but there were several highlighted things that I talk about in my notes. For instance, resuming an in-person Bach marathon, performances of some big works like Schutz's Musikalische Exekvien at Music for Good Friday. We've just come up on the sad year anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Our composer in residence last year wrote a Ukrainian lament for our canon for Good Friday, which we performed at the Good Friday service. We also, at Bruce's request, performed for our the choir's closing Sunday of last program year, one of Mozart's Missa Brevis, which was a lot of fun to have sort of a little chamber orchestra and to have the choir featured on their last Sunday of the program year, interpolated through the service, and people responded very well to that. And of course, our services for Easter, Lessons and Carols, and Christmas Eve, as well as a collaboration with internationally renowned violinist Peter Shepard-Skervert at our November 1st Friday. So there's a lot of really wonderful things that we've been doing. I also really want to say thank you to the vestry and the finance committee. The choir received raises this past year. That was the first time since 2017 that the choir's pay had increased, and so it was definitely time to do it, and I really appreciate that the vestry and the finance committee honored the work that the choir is doing. This is, of course, in keeping with some of the goals that the that the internal review gave us, which was that one of the priorities and things that the congregation valued about St. David's was the music program. And so I appreciate the support that's been given to the music program financially, both from the vestry and from donors to the music series. So thank you all for your work with that. One of the other aspects that came out of the internal review was the desire to make this church a more welcoming and diverse community. That we heard Judith talking about that as well with the Sacred Ground series. That's one of the things that I hold very near and dear to my heart as someone who is programming music, so trying to lift up voices of composers in demographics that have been repressed. So as I've talked about before, at each service, every service throughout the program year, I always have at least one work by a canon expansive composer, whether that's a composer who's a woman, a queer composer, a black composer, an indigenous composer. So folks, so that we're expanding the canon and lifting up different voices. So you can learn more about that in the About This Week's Music. I always try to include that and tell you about who you're hearing, because these are actual people that are creating works, and that oftentimes if we're commissioning them, we're actually supporting them. We're giving money directly back to artists in our community and related to our community. I really want to thank Hugh and everyone who worked, and Travers as well, and everyone who worked with getting the sound system installed. That's been really great to support so that folks can see what's happening in the music program. Like Hugh said, though, the immediate need for that viewership may be less than during COVID times for folks who are homebound, or if they have a disability, or if they have COVID, or if they are sick. All of these things are really important for making our church all-embracing, for providing access to as many people as possible. So having that live stream is a really important thing, and I really want to thank Hugh, who's always back there, and I want to reiterate what Hugh says as someone who also does that but has to do it much less than Hugh does, because he's volunteering. Any folks who are interested, or who know someone who might be interested in running the live stream on a Sunday morning or at a music event, we're happy to train you. We're happy to walk you through the sound system. I want to also thank the vestry for providing me with a sabbatical this last summer. It was very restorative. I will admit that after COVID, I was really proud of the work that the choir did during COVID. I was proud of the work that I was able to do to make sure that we had services on a Sunday morning. But I will admit, after a year and a half of editing footage and making sure that that was up at a high quality, I was burned out. And I admit that I'm still kind of recovering from that. That was a lot. So a sabbatical of 3 months was deeply appreciated. And I was able to come back in this year really restored and refreshed, although I had to catch up on all the work that I didn't do over those 3 months. I still feel like I'm catching up. I also appreciate that respecting the fact that because we have a little one in our family and we have some vulnerable folks in our family, we weren't traveling internationally or doing things that folks do on sabbaticals in the midst of COVID. So rather than funding a trip, I was able to commission several instruments that I've been using throughout the services. You've seen either a hurdy-gurdy or the bagpipes, and soon you'll, probably at the end of this year, you'll see a Welsh bowed lyre called a cruth, which should be coming in as well. The report that I gave of the work that I did during pandemic, both musical and research, is still up online. I can send you links if you're interested in seeing. I gave a 2-forum session called Unsettled Words, talking about different aspects of anti-colonial and decolonial work and how that impacts what I'm thinking about in terms of what we're doing as music. So COVID does continue to be a reality, and we do see that that does impact some of the programs that we do. For instance, I have not resumed Voices Rise yet. That's an at-risk community, folks who are experiencing homelessness or folks who are in financial distress, and that means that they're going to have limited access to health care. And it seems to me, I am not ready to start singing in a closed space with folks who are going to be impacted that way. So that's something that is deeply important to me. I grew up, my dad was executive director of a homeless day shelter. I grew up working with that community, and that's something that's very important to me. But also important is making sure that those folks are not exposed to a harmful situation. So we haven't begun Voices Rise yet. I'm waiting until the time seems right and continuing forward with that. And that's something I'll be talking with Todd about. We also haven't, we're not currently singing at elder care facilities. We had established several relationships with a number of elder care facilities in the city, and that's another area where I'm just waiting until the time seems right to go back to that. There's been a few other exciting challenges through the year, like the fact that I've had the wonderful opportunity to work with 4 or 5 different clergy over the past year as we've had folks coming in and out. It's wonderful to work with different folks. It's also a great challenge to make sure that liturgy is planned and we're ready to go forward. But I really want to thank Bruce McPherson, who isn't here right now, but we're thinking of him, the Reverend Canon Scott Slater, Very Reverend John Rabb, and the Reverend Carolyn Stewart. Thank you all for working with me and making liturgy with me. I also want to thank everyone who makes worship happen here, Margie Geithner, the Altar Guild, the Flower Guild, the Vestry and Congregation support, and also the support of the staff, Roxanne and Chris and Peter. I also want to thank the donors to the music series, and particularly the search committee. This has been a big process, and I know something that's been on my mind, thinking about who am I going to be working with, who am I going to be planning music with for the foreseeable future. And I've gotten to have a couple meetings with Todd so far. I'm very excited. I'm earnestly and truly excited to start work with him, and am eagerly looking forward to March 19th, not only because it's the Bach Marathon, which you can attend, and welcome people to attend, but also because it will be Bruce's first day, and I'll be excited to say, yeah, we have a 5-hour concert after every service. Yeah, learn to expect this. Anyway, there's a lot that goes on in the music program. I've tried to encapsulate that. You can read more about it. You can always talk to me if you have questions about what I'm thinking about or what I'm doing. Thank you all for your support, and thank you for singing as well. That's it for me.
Thanks, Doug. Let's see, pinch hitting, Sylvia.
I'm giving the report for the Flower Committee for our fearless leader, Nettie Washburn. She wanted me to thank all of our members, Karen Visser, Liz Robinson, myself, Susie Boudelier, Corby Pine, Sarah Kleinfelter, Jen Spencer, Wendy Albert, Ketty Seitz, our returning members, Jenny Hovermill and Mark Hofberger, and our newest member, Irene Brennan. So we appreciate these ladies and everything they do in getting beautiful arrangements up on the altar and our special times at Christmas and Easter. We also want to throw out there, if anybody's interested in learning to do flowers, come and talk to anybody on the Flower Committee. We'd love to work with you. And the other thing I guess I wanted to say is we make money, yay! And so we do a lot of things around the church. A lot of it's outside, but this year we put a railing up on the altar so that people could get up and down those steps a little bit easier. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Of course, it's on me. We scheduled this during Lent where there are no flowers, right? But you have your own sabbatical now. Margie.
Hi, I'm Margie. I'm head of the Altar Guild, and I have been for 1,000 years. And I wanted to thank all of our members, especially people who've stepped up since COVID. Dee Alvazadas, Mary Louise Dawson, Travers Nelson, Corby Pine, Stephanie and Rusty Rich, and our newest members, Judy Pittenger and Loxley Nichols, and our special youth member, David Janowski. And it's the duty of the Altar Guild to assist the rector in preparing the altar for this 8 o'clock, the 10 o'clock service, all of the special services like Christmas and Easter, Ash Wednesday, baptisms and funerals, etc. And I want to thank Roxanne for all her behind-the-scenes help. And we are always looking for new members, either men, women, or youth. So if you think you would like to join the Altar Guild, let me know. Call me or text me. I'm not real good at email, but we would appreciate any new members. And if you have any questions, just let me know. Thank you.
Thanks, Margie. Jim, stewardship.
Hey, good morning, everyone. So, for the Stewardship Committee for 2022, as you all know, stewardship is kind of the front end of the financial continuum of how we fund our operations and keep the lights on. And after me, you'll be hearing from our treasurer and senior warden kind of about the end product, but this is sort of the beginning part of it. Want to share some numbers with you. I have a brief report in the published document, but for 2023, the pledges that we've received thus far or have been promised thus far are $271,525, and that's across 76 households. For those who are number crunchers, that's an average of $3,572.70. Of those pledges, 43 are an increase from last year, so that's really good. 20 are at the same level from last year. 13 are decreases. It is what it is. 3 are new, people who hadn't pledged in any prior year, so that's great. And 3 are what we call returning pledges, which are people who pledged in prior years but not in 2022. So they're kind of coming back in, and that's also fantastic. So for the previous year, 2022, our pledges were $265,682 across 91 households. So if you're doing the math, the average is just over $2,900 for the previous year. So we have fewer pledging units, but the average pledge is higher. So that's a fantastic trend. That's a good place to be as we position ourselves to bring the new rector on board and look at new programming and expanding our reach in the community. So that's all good. And I want to thank, of course, everyone who's pledged and my committee, Tom Washburn, Hugh Bethel, and Judith Nelson for their help and support throughout the pledge season and as we put it together. Now, in love and candor, I want to sort of lay down a little alarm bell, which again you'll hear from others. Looking forward, we're in a good place. Looking back, say if we look back to say 2015, our pledge income at that time was a little under 500,000. So that's a pretty significant decline over time when you look at 2015 to last year to this year, and we had just under 150 households who were pledging. So that's the challenge that my team had, and we will have going forward, because I'm going to do this again next year, yay. But I'm excited to have a rector coming on board who, one of the things he did was significantly increased the giving in his parish in California. So he's good at this, and look forward to working with him on that. If you have any questions, I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. But again, thank you for your financial commitment and investment in St. David's for 2023. I think the best is yet to come. So thank you all.
Thanks, Jim. Travers, I inadvertently skipped over you.
Stuart, I thought you had given me a reprieve.
No, sir.
I'm Travers Nelson, speaking also on behalf of co-chair Jen Spencer and our members Court Corcoran and Ken Rice. It was a busy year. We're getting ready for calling a new rector. Candidly, we're way over budget for all good and necessary reasons, and I want to thank Stuart and Hugh Robinson for helping to keep the bills paid. I think I'll start with grounds, because most significantly what we've done is redo the front lawn. As you can see, it is much more welcoming. The plants are mostly native and will be much easier to maintain. We also have a lovely bluestone terrace for when the weather warms up. In the playground, we rebuilt timber steps and removed some aging, failing trees that were endangering the playground. We're doing tree work generally, substantial pruning to the glorious magnolia on the south side of the church, and work in the memorial garden, as well as clean up along the along the lane. Safety-wise, we installed drainage to eliminate ponding and icing at walkways leading to the church and the north wing. And for maintenance, HMD continues to provide our routine weekly and monthly maintenance. And they are also on call for snow removal. Don't laugh. I remember 24 inches in March. As to the building, major repairs to the office suite air handling unit and chiller, lots of other minor repairs as needed, and we've had some success adjusting control settings to reduce utility costs, as you can see. Interior-wise, we repainted the chapel ceiling, and again, looking ahead for calling a new rector, we repainted the Great Hall, the sailor room, the vestry room, and various corridors and stairways to freshen the place. In the day school, we installed screens on the windows and replaced the broken window operators in the north wing, and yes, Anderson still has the parts for our 70-year-old windows. Operationally, we worked with interim rector Bruce McPherson to hire contract services for the work that Michael Johnson used to handle. Michael retired in November. I hope you have met Juan Martinez. If you have not, he wears an all-building maintenance t-shirt. Introduce yourself. He's here on Sundays and 3 mornings a week and is generally helpful all the time. Planning, looking ahead further, we're keeping an eye on the aging hardwood that's in the verge on Roland Avenue, planning for its eventual replacement. And we have a design effort underway to add signs interior and exterior to be a more welcoming place for visitors and even also for the members who are not here as often, as in when you come up the elevator, which way do you go? I think the significant thing that we've done last year was to look at major projects. Our 37 fabulous stained glass windows and our wonderful Cassavant Freres organ are both in need of restoration, and the middle and the north wings need a new roof, and we haven't painted the building in 20 years. So if you take a look at the annual report, you'll see that there's a schedule of these and other major projects, and included also are some fun facts about the church that I hope you'll take a look at and enjoy. Thank you.
Becky, the 50th anniversary fund.
Hi, everybody. Speaking today on behalf of my fellow trustees, Hugh Robinson and Alma Bell, who I don't see here today. Just for those of you who might not be familiar with the fund, it was formed in 1956 to issue loans to new Episcopal churches and missions, an optimistic vision back in 1956. We still do issue loans sometimes when churches need them for small renovations and that kind of thing, but in 2007, the trust document was amended to allow grants as well as loans because we were not receiving very many loan applications for new Episcopal churches in Maryland. And this past year, the vestry increased the percentage of our investments that we are allowed to give out as grants. So we can give up to 5% of a rolling average of the quarterly balances of our investments. So that's about, for this year, it's roughly $55,000 that we can give out in grants. The report in your packet lists out the grants that we gave in 2022. We tend to give grants of about $5,000 to $7,500 at a time, but certainly we can, we're happy to consider any kind of grant requests that people or organizations have. We can also give grants to any 501c3 organization, but we tend to give to organizations that we work with already as a congregation. So for example, Paul's Place and Hampden Family Center are usually on our list every year to give grants to, or organizations that have some connection to the Episcopal Church, either locally or around the world. Sutton Scholars, Erica, and Episcopal Relief and Development are some examples of those kinds of organizations that we've given to recently. We're also forming a relationship with the Church of the Resurrection in Highlandtown, which is a Spanish-speaking church run by Reverend Margarita, and that's actually a mission of the Episcopal Diocese in Maryland. So we funded a commercial refrigerator and a commercial freezer for their food giveaway program. So yeah, if you have any organizations that you work with that you'd like us to consider grants for, we're happy to hear from anybody who has ideas. The amounts that we're giving, that we're allowed to give, has really increased. So we have a little bit of extra to give out, and please feel free to contact either me, Hugh, or Alma. That's it.
Thank you, Becky. Mr. Robbins.
Good morning, all. So my tale of the numbers you have in your packets stems in great part as a continuation of Jim and Travers's comments on both income and outflow. So I'm not going to go down each and every number. If you'd like to, if anybody has questions, obviously after my brief presentation, I'm happy to try to answer those. The most important number, I think, to look at both in 2022 actual and 2023 budget is the number of pledges. And you can see that if you walk down the numbers, you can see that a loss of $250,000 in income over the last 7 years really does put a real hurt on our income side. So we have budgeted $260,365, which of course is the stated number from stewardship. We have backed off a bit on some other income numbers, most importantly general giving, where we caught some unpledged income last year that was completely unexpected, so we've backed that down to a normal number. And you can see the other large number in terms of income is the day school cost share at $33,000 and the Campbell Trust income at around $92,000. And that is when you look at income from trusts and endowments and things, normally those have to do with either a 5% or a trailing average over a certain period of time. Campbell Trust is pretty much the same, and so that's what we're expecting based on current income. Now, I'm going to skip just for a moment the really important part of, the second most important part of income, and I'm going to come back to that in a moment. So I'm now going to go down to expenses. Expenses are pretty much what they are. What we have here is people expense. We've tried to keep somewhat of a lid on that. Obviously, the Reverend Mr. Bruce coming in is a number there. We have office staff, and we have the music budget, and so we've pretty much tried to keep a 2022 kind of expense there when you look at that. The diocesan pledge is another large number that has to do with, again, with a rolling average. I am happy and disappointed at the same time, because we should really want that number to be going up, because that means we have more income. However, the $97,000, which is the current 2023 assessment, will go down to that's about $95,000 in 2024, because we are shrinking. That's not the direction in which we want to go. And then I think the other large number, if you look at expenses other than Travers's area, is in utilities. And that we have pretty much no control over. That is also due to increase in cost and, at least last year, increase in usage, given some of the cold temperatures that we had last winter. If anybody would like to think that we're going to see some advantage in this light winter, no, because costs went up. And so that is what it is. So if you were to do some math in your head, which, even though I'm a banker, I was a religion major in college, so I've never been very good at math on the fly. I would tell you that if you look at $723,000 in total expenses and leave out the endowment drawdown and the unallocated income source, that number does not come to $723,000. So where do we make up our income at this point? Now I take you back up to the income. That is the endowment drawdown, which, again, same sort of thing, is a trailing 12-month average of the endowment income. So that will actually should be a little less this year, given where the endowment performance has been. May not be, based upon what we need to do to balance the budget. But the vestry asked me in reviewing this budget last week, the vestry asked me to put in this line of unallocated income source, which comes to roughly $100,000, $98,917, to basically say that is money that we will need to find in this year's budget that we did not need to find in last year's budget. So that's the bad news. The news, I don't want to put good out in front of this. The news is that St. David's will pay its bills. We have to, obviously, and so that will require that money coming from some source, and that may well be the endowment. However, there is a small bright spot in this year's expected income, which is nowhere reflected in any of the numbers that I've given you, because while I fully expect it to come, it is not yet arrived, and that is, for those of you who may be involved in your own businesses or in the finance world, known as ERTC, or Employee Retainage Tax Credit. We have, through a consultant, have done our homework and done our math on the quarterly 941 basis of income tax, and we are set to expect about a gross number of about $290,000 this year from our friends, the federal government, in the form of ERTC income. Because it is a tax, because we are non-taxable, and because it is a tax credit, it comes in the form of cash. It will come in what I believe to be 5 different tranches of income. That's based on different numbers of quarters under which we qualify for ERT tax credit. And we'll have paid a small but I think reasonable fee to the consultant for putting all that information together. It's quite complicated. Let me tell you something, as a commercial banker who was involved in the P3 program, the triple P, all whatever, PPP, whatever you want to call it, and we stayed away from that. That is like the last thing in the world that I want to do, is put together PPP income. I'm looking at a friend of ours who sits out there who owns his own company, and I know he would say the same thing about doing that math for PPP. So forget it on ERTC, and so that amount is it will be well paid for. So that will be the good news for 2023. The Finance Committee and the vestry will get together at some point once that money comes in and decide how we want to allocate that, how we want to deal with the traditional draw on endowment, how we want to deal with expenses that we may see coming in. But I am here to tell you that I guess the unfortunate news is it's a one-time only thing, and next year when I stand here, because I'm also coming back next year, I will not be able to tell you that income is coming through. But always trying to be optimistic. I will also be standing up here after about 9 months of new rector, and hopefully more people will be sitting in these seats. and more people we will get more raw numbers to respond to Jim and his team in the fall during the stewardship campaign. You know, the one thing I want to say personally is that, you know, that money and increased money probably doesn't come from all of us who are sitting here today reaching more into our pocket. It comes from all of us responding to the new Ministry of Erector and pulling more bodies in here so that they can pledge. I want to get back to 2015. I do want to go back in time to at least to 2015 in terms of those numbers. All right, let me just finish up with a couple of things. Let me go through the snazzy and wonderful news of the endowment. You know, the bottom line is the market did not do all that great last year, and so we are off by more than $1 million in the total of the endowment. You all can do the math on yourself and by yourselves and see those numbers. But we've seen some recovery, and we've seen, you know, again, because we are invested in different things throughout both the restricted and the unrestricted endowments, we've seen some bright spots among the darker spots, and here is where we are. You know, I don't know that a whole lot of questions can be answered there, because it's pretty much the news is what it is. I want to finish, but I'll answer any questions that anybody has. I want to finish on a bright note, and a note that Charlie Palmer, is Charlie out there? Nope, there's Charlie. That Charlie wanted me to mention. The endowment has benefited in the last year or 18 months, Charlie, I guess, in the last year or 18 months, and will in the next, is expected to continue this year, another bright spot, to the tune of about $1.8 million through an anonymous bequest of a parishioner. Let me say that again. $1.8 million in an anonymous bequest by 2 departed parishioners. That is unbelievable and fantastic. And I'd like all of you to send a little prayer up anonymously to those 2 people who kept this parish in memory at their death. I encourage all of you, if you have not done so, Liz and I have, to please visit your wills and designate, doesn't matter how small, doesn't matter how large, just to designate St. David's as a beneficiary in your wills. Because that is where a lot of wonderful things can be done. So that number, the also good news is, I think it is about $220,000 to come in 2023, which rounds then to a total gift of $1.8 million, and that goes into the restricted endowment. And so that was quite wonderful, and you know, we all give good prayers to those 2 fabulous individuals who left us that amount of money. So, questions that anybody has? This is the part that when Stuart called me last year and said, "Okay, suck it up, guy, you're going to take over the treasurer's job," I thought this is the time when I least look forward to it. And Vivica's back there smiling at me left, right, and center, because she's in the pew. Right, she's in the pew, not up here. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm just curious, of the money that we're getting back from the government, how much of that did you pay to the consultant?
Of the money we're getting back from the government, how much did we what?
Did you pay to the consultant?
$10,000.
Good return.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to, I thought I put that out there if I did. It's a small price to pay, let me tell you. That's peanuts. Sir?
Where are we on percentage draw of the endowment versus where we've been in the past, say back to 2015?
Well, it's 5% supposedly. It's always supposed to be 5%, isn't it, Vivica? Well, but Ned, I guess your question is, hey, where was I don't know the number. Where were we in 2015 with the total amount, and what were we drawing at that point? Do you? I mean, I think, you know, again, I've only been a year to this, but my guess is that we'd prefer to be as little as possible. You know, I personally prefer to be using it for something else. I personally prefer not to have any endowment income having to be used in the operating budget of the parish and have the endowment pay for things that Travers wants to do, like painting the building and, you know, redoing the organ and stuff like that. But we just aren't there.
Preach it, brother.
What was that?
He said, preach it, brother.
Preach it, brother. Yes, I'm trying. I'm trying. I mean, seriously. I mean, that's what you always should be there. Is your operating expenses should be taken care of by your operating income. And if you're blessed and lucky enough to have a fabulous endowment as we are, it should be done for, that should be used for other stuff. Stuff that, you know, again, more, boy, I don't want to open up this can of worms from an accounting perspective, but more things that you can capitalize, capital improvements rather than you know, daily expenses. So, I mean, look, the last thing I want to say is, you know, I love being the guy who comes up here and gives you the tale of woe. That's why Stuart put me virtually last before himself to get that, you know, that out of the way. But you know, I think we're in a, you know, when I look around here, you know, we're the true believers, and now we need to take that to the next step with a new rector and a new place and get some more true believers in here. So that's what I would say. Any more questions?
As a former treasurer myself, and Vivica, you're back there too, we've been waving our arms for years going, we can't keep doing this. So, but I also agree with you, we're sort of preaching to the choir here. So it's how we then message to the rest of our fellow parishioners.
You all are not our challenge.
Yes, not far from it. So first of all, you heard a lot of great information. You can see a lot of hard work going on. I think that everybody that spoke really deserves a round of applause for some really hard and great work. So let me, I'll keep my comments somewhat brief. And, you know, it's interesting, when I got this senior warden job, I didn't recognize until Bruce McPherson arrived that they put a comma personnel after it. But updates from the staff are in your booklet. I do think, Roxanne, can you stand up? We're celebrating 40 years of Roxanne's service at the end of last year. As we mentioned, if you haven't met Juan and you see him around the building, he is extraordinary. This place is running like a top in terms of the physical plant and being kept clean and problems being rectified anywhere in the building. So if you see Juan and he's hard to miss, as we pointed out earlier, make sure to thank him. He's a great guy and he really is doing wonderful work for us. Chris, you need to stand up for a second. Naylor. Chris keeps pulling our fat from the fire, so to speak. I think she's in like her third iteration of trying to retire, and we keep, you know, pulling her back. I've promised her that we do want her to go happily into her retirement. During 2023, we did bring an outside bookkeeping service, one of which I was familiar with from another place that I'm involved. And I know what they can do, and Hugh and I are in discussion about it. I think that we really want to move to a spot where we can just have somebody approving payments here and all the rest of the accounting is getting done in the background. That's a work in progress, and so Chris has been so great to step back in and help us while we get that finally sorted. So thank you, Chris. Yeah. Probably many of you have met and or worked with Peter Hankey some, new to the parish this past March. He is doing quite a bit. There are those here that'll say maybe a bit too much in spots, but we'll leave that. I think that it's been a great run by Peter thus far in terms of helping us streamline some things, having an extra set of hands in the mix back there. I mean, one of the things that we did historically here, and we're starting to rectify it and we'll continue to rectify it, we've underinvested in our staff. And quite honestly, this is not a job to do the bulletins and the website and all these different things that Scott Bellows was doing by himself ultimately, and you wonder why the guy burned out. So, I think that some of the work that we've been doing back there is about streamlining, organizing, revitalizing, certainly a lot of revitalizing that Travers mentioned where he's been, practically living here too. I sit at the rector's desk one day a week, by the way, which I'm pleased to do. Those are things that got to be done. We're all leaning in, and the revitalization work we're seeing just in the physical plan has been significant. And so I think that that's really what the staff has been up to with the support of folks like Travers and the Flower Guild and the Altar Guild, et cetera. So job well done. Search committee, if you were on the search committee, can you please stand up? I know that, and it's, there are people traveling and that sort of thing. First of all, an unexpected number of great candidates were identified in this process. I mean, we far exceeded what we were told to expect by the diocese. And I will tell you that part of it, I think, was Bruce's leadership in working with the search committee, but a very dynamic and different group of people that really committed themselves to this process. And we're going to see the results and be joyful for them on the 19th of March. They also, interestingly enough, there's really no kind of according to Hoyle process for doing this. And there was some method in my madness in getting some individuals involved. We've developed a process that we really should be sharing back with the diocese and with other dioceses as to this is the right way to identify candidates, vet them, and present them to the leadership for approval. So just a phenomenal job by everybody. A shout out, let me just mention the names. I mean, Brooks Kitchell and Cynthia McIntyre are co-chairs. Lloyd Burdett, Tracy Collins, Margie Gwyther, Jenny Hovermill, Ned Inslee, Johnny Pine, Ken Rice, Jen Spencer, and Topper Webb. And I will read this one thing because I believe it absolutely. Their collective wisdom, diligence, and faithfulness have been a blessing to St. David. So that's worthy of applause. So if you're keeping score at home, we know that Todd will be here. He officially comes on board March 1. His first day in the office will be on the 15th. So yes, I'm a softie and said, you've got 2 weeks to get here and we'll pay you for that 2 weeks. But I didn't clear that with you, I just did it. But he's thrilled, and he will be right here on the 19th, which we cannot wait for. He's already working real hard. As Doug mentioned, they've had some good dialogue. I'm in very regular dialogue with Todd right now, and he's going to be able to hit the ground running. And what I would say too, because people have asked, I don't think you're going to see, you might see some tweaking with our services on Sunday, but I don't think that that's where you're going to see the real changes. And he's going to be very smart about it. He needs to live in the space with his flock before he really starts making any significant changes. But I think that you will see changes with how we each serve the church, and more on that in a second. How we make the church better known in our community, and how we welcome newcomers in particular, because that's something that he has accomplished in spades in his parish out in California. And nothing against California per se, but he's done it in a place where, as he said, he had to baptize most of the people he brought into the building. At least at least, for the most part, people that show up here when they're looking for a new church home are already baptized. So he's done phenomenal work there, and I couldn't be more excited. And I know that every member of the vestry and the search committee feel that way. It was unbelievably unique alignment around this individual. So there's lots to be thankful for and excited about. So final thoughts, and Hugh, I think you were bang on. I'm up here preaching to the converted. I mentioned a moment ago how we serve the church. Well, I'm looking around this room at a lot of people that actually do serve this church. And I think our task together is to work with some of our other fellow parishioners and find ways to invite them and encourage them to serve this church rather than to be served by this church. It's tremendously important. I know that Todd will be really great, but it's not up to Todd alone to help us build the brighter version of St. David's. It's up to all of us. And again, this is a group here that I have utmost confidence will do that. Let's engage our other parishioners, and let's be radical in our welcome to the newcomers that we do see here, because that's how we will get back to the days that Hugh has referenced, and that's just tremendously important. So with that, those are the end of my comments. I'm happy to answer any questions, and then we have some final business to attend to. Okay. First of all, let's recognize some really great work. Could Hannah, Freddie, and Lolly stand up? Lolly might be downstairs. Freddie, you're in the back. Hannah, you got to stand up for a second. Quit taking notes. First of all, Hannah, I think you've probably done a little bit of everything around this church. And then she gets on the vestry, and we go, well, we want you to be the registrar. And poor Hannah's like, I really don't want to be the registrar, and we made her do it. So, and she's done a phenomenal job, and it's just, testimony to how she believes in this place, that she kind of stretched outside of something that maybe wasn't really her bag and has just done a dynamite job. So that's, thank you, Hannah. Freddie, a leader in bringing sacred ground to us, which has just been transformative for many, many people that took it. You can always count on Freddie to tell it like it is, and that is something that we really need. We can't advance this place if we're not honest with ourselves about the things that we see and the things that need to be done. So thank you, Freddie. I think Lolly must have gone downstairs. Hats off to Lolly. She's been involved in a lot of different ways, but we had somebody that had to step away from the vestry, and Lolly came to me and said, I'm willing to step in. This is a pivotal time at our church, and she's been such a great addition, knows how to lead as we all need to be doing from our seats, and we should be really thankful for that. You'll note my name here too, because not even technically, I'm a member of the vestry right now. The senior warden is a separate officer in the way that we handle our polity. I don't get me started on that word in the Episcopal Church, but in any event, I am formally going off as a vestry member. I will stay on for an extra year as senior warden. I volunteered that to Todd and the vestry, and they felt that it was a wise thing to do in a time of transition, and I am pleased to do that. So you get one more year of me, and then I'll be quiet. So in that vein, we will do it by acclamation, but let's first recognize the new incoming vestry class, and it's a typo on there. It's the class of 2026, but my apologies. So Susie, Kristen, and Bert, could you stand up, please? And I didn't mention Mark Hofberger because she's on her way, or maybe she's already in New Zealand right now.
On the way.
She's in a plane. Well, you know, a little bit about each of them. I mean, if you look up stalwart in the dictionary, you find Susie Boudelier there, and she's hunting me down while I was on Christmas break. Like, how's this vestry process working this year? So I started to tell her, and she goes, well, I nominate myself then. I said, Susie, that's fine by me, and I'm sure fine by everybody. So thank you, Susie. Kristen Marsh, a newer member of our church, but a very faithful attendee, and she's been looking for a way to dig in since the moment she came across the doorstep here. So we're thrilled to have Kristen adding perspective that we need from a newcomer. And so thank you, Kristen. Bert, I mean, a long-time parishioner, and I thought I had him last year, and he put me off. But talk about a person that understands that we all need to serve here, and he realized that this was the time for him to serve. And so we're really thankful, Bert. Thank you. So I will call for acclamation to approve this new class of the vestry. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. The ayes have it. So with that, John, if you can come up and give us the... Okay, yeah, please.
I also should say that the reason you didn't see my voice move during the acclamation, I can't vote. Clergy cannot have a membership in a congregation. I can pledge, I can do all kinds of other things, but actually voting for, and I can also say this, serving on the vestry, I can't do that. So I want to briefly say that on the 25th of March is going to be a key time for the Diocese of Maryland. We're going to be electing a Bishop Coadjutor. Bishop Coadjutor will become the 15th Bishop of Maryland upon the full retirement of Bishop Sutton, which will be about a year from now. The election on March 25th will be at St. John's Church in Ellicott City. Our delegate is Sharon Rabb down here. Our alternate is Alma Bell, and Alma is also co-chair of the Transition Committee that is working for the process of leading up to the election. The thing I would like to ask all of you to do is to look on our diocesan website. You will find access to all of the written material they have done, and you'll also have a chance to hear interviews that were done. So it's really important. There are 4 nominees, 2 men, 2 women. None are from the diocese. Greg Morris from the Diocese of Chicago, Alyssa Newton from the Diocese of Olympia, that's Washington State, the Reverend Carrie Schofield Broadbent from the Diocese of Central New York, and the Reverend Randolph Alexander from the Diocese of Virginia. They're the 4 nominees. So let Sharon know or Alma know if you have any feelings or thoughts. I do still have seat, voice, and vote at our diocesan convention, so if you have any thoughts about any of the candidates, let me know too. But this is an important time for the diocese. We're working very hard, Stuart and I, to make sure that Todd Bruce is canonically resident, meaning letter of demissary fully filed, so that he will be there to vote on the 25th. And I'm also going to provide transportation for him to get there. So with that, I'm going to close this with a blessing. May the Lord bless you and keep you.
Amen.
May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you.
Amen.
May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace.
Amen.
We are adjourned.
We are adjourned.